Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony with LoveCry and Jesse,
Hello.
the CEO, president of LoveCry. And today we're doing a topic that Jesse and I both, I think, feel passionately about and have had, personal and experience in our lives and people in our lives, and it's addictions, right? So addictions is a really humongous topic. And I think the first thing that comes to mind when someone says addictions is like someone shooting themselves in the arm with a needle. But there's a lot of addictive behaviors that we do. I love what Gabor Mate said about addictions. He's like, I was treating street people and they had all kinds of addictions, but I had an addiction. So Gabor Mate's addiction was he would spend way too much time, way too much money buying classical music CDs. So he said, I had so many CDs, I would never in my lifetime even listen to them all, but I had to keep buying more. So there's something that compels us to keep doing something. So I don't know, maybe like a running definition of addiction is something that you something that's controlling you rather than you're kind of controlling it. Unless there's, and it could be a substance, it could be a behavior, something that's out of hand.
Yeah, that's it. Can you, what were you saying with Gabor Mate again?
Well, that he was working with a lot of people on the street in East Vancouver, and he said so many of them had addictions that were so obvious, cocaine, other drugs, alcohol. And he's like, but I had an addiction, like I was this proper doctor guy, but I had a real addiction to classical music CDs.
Even healing can be an addiction because it's this sense of I feel better. You could attain this, get to this, and your pain's gone. You know what I mean? So like you could get on this path, and I'm all enlightened. All these like-minded people, but then yet something doesn't go your way. Someone says something wrong or doesn't do what you think, and then next thing you know, you're judging, hating against them, which is because of the addiction that makes you feel better.
Mm.
You know,
Actually, one author said healing junkies. So she was talking about healing junkies, that they're constantly healing, and like you were saying, they kind of convince themselves that they're further along than they actually are.
yeah, yes, exactly. It becomes something of like, look at me, look how good I am as a person, look how good I'm doing, and it's yet that's not to me what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is being able to be with your negative and your positive and working with both at the same time. To ignore that negative is as well also leads, I think, to addictions.
Because you want something to more strongly repress or ignore or deny your negatives or your unhealed stuff. So your unaccepted stuff and your unhealed stuff. So I need stronger stuff to distract me from this. I need to throw heavier and heavier carpets, on top of this dirt because I swept under the carpet, but it's still sticking up. So I need to put more carpets on there. So and it could be anything that you're kind of doing compulsively. And they talk about like the physiology of addiction, like it gets the pleasure center of your brain, it releases dopamine, but it also, I think, has that strong component of what you're saying, something that helps you keep repressed things repressed. So distractions. And I need stronger distractions. I need more convincing distractions. I mean, gaming comes to mind, right? So they say if something is interfering with your function in your life, then it's an addiction, and it's not positive, it's not functional. So if someone's gaming instead of like, it's interfering with their work, with their family, with their social life, then that's an issue, just as much as drinking could be.
Yeah, if anything affects your emotional well-being, then it become and that starts to become an addiction. So like when it's not beneficial to your emotional well-being, you start to feel it's almost like I don't know how to say
Like
it,
a compulsion.
like it's something that like you get and you feel good, but then it's also like a stab in the back. So
uh,
you're kind of like going and you're like, oh yes, like you're searching this, oh it's so good with them, and at the same time you're like,
yeah.
ow, you stab yourself in the back, like by thinking that you're doing this to better yourself,
Mm.
to get past the pain, which sometimes maybe at those moments you need it, because sometimes you hit those points and you break.
You're just too overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's being able to not judge yourself, not hate yourself for those decisions, because that's what leads further to the addiction is the shame, the hatred, the no self love, and that to me is the biggest factor within dealing with addictions is the love. And that's what I find lots of people are missing and why they search out these things, because try to find love in society, it's very difficult to find that in society. So most people end up on drugs, whether they're prescription, street drugs. You know,
or drinking to excess, or any
it's
of their
inevitable.
compulsive habits. Um, that's interesting. So lack of self love, and then you're saying there's this vicious cycle where someone's like, I drank too much, or I had too much drugs, or I gained for 3 days straight without eating, and so then they feel worse about themselves because they realize, this addictive behavior was bad. I did something real bad, and then they're more down on themselves, and it drives them to do this addiction even more. So it can become this like vicious cycle.
Yeah, yeah, because that feeling of not good, it's it's something that like it's hard to deal with on your own. So when you feel not good and you don't have support, you don't have anyone to talk to, no one understands you. That, the best thing, that's what it feels like. That understands you, makes you feel happy or good in the moment, but then it's not there for you when you need it. When you actually need help or need someone to be there, it's not there. It pushes everyone you want away from you. So it kind of like it, it's hard because there's no like
Like it's helpful, but then it's hurtful because it takes you away from, positive
and enhances your pain.
in relationships. Oh yeah.
Yeah, enhances it. So now you get this happy feeling, and then it just brings you back down. So you're constantly getting happy and then down. So you just always want to run away because you're never happy without it.
Mm. Actually, I was telling Jesse that in grade seven, a policeman came to our class, and he drew a graph that I'll never forget. So he's like, there's a graph of mood, and you start, here, you're feeling kind of down, so you take some drugs, and look, now your mood is great, right? And then the drugs were off, and you end up lower than you started. And then you're like, well, let me do some more drugs, and then you end up, there, and then you end up lower, and this is what your highs start to look like. The depression sinks lower. So that's, part of the hurt, and it's not necessarily drugs or drinking to excess. That could be sexual addiction. It could be gaming addiction. It could be
Gambling.
gambling addiction. So looking for that little hit, like, oh, I won $10 or I won $100, and like this hope, and it kind of distracts us from what's really bringing us down in this needy place in the beginning. Right? So
And
that.
and a lot too, I find, because my dad was dealt with alcoholism for a long, like all his life. Also dealt with addiction to drugs, and like he would pretty much do anything he could get his hands on, but alcohol was his main source. So there's a lot of like belief about where I would go, like how I would be generationally. This is in your dad, so this is in you,
So people in your family were saying, we can guess where Jesse's probably headed because
as well
look what he,
as
look what he came from, right?
as well as systemically.
Mm.
It was that's what you're viewed as, and then generationally, they're like, well, considering your dad thinks like this and was going through these things and never healed or dealt with his problems, so now you're going to be the same. You're going to have the same addictions, the same issues, which I most likely did. But inside myself, I didn't want I didn't want that. Like I saw what it did to my family. I watched my family be destroyed, and cause pain and anger, separation between my mom and dad, between me and my family. So it's just something that like I don't think is generationally passed on. It is in a sense, but we have our own responsibility and we can change that. And I know with some of the counselors out there and some of the ways of dealing with it that they kind of make it you, um, but never believe that. Never.
Like they make it you, like, this is where you're headed.
Yeah,
This
like
is
this is how you think. This is who you are.
right.
You can't change. You can't be better than what you are, and that takes away love. That takes away humanity. Because why can't we change? Why can't we be better just because we're in pain or hurting? Why don't we understand the pain and hurt that they're going through before we judge that this is how they're going to be? Um, yeah, so.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. So it's like people's expectations around us can make it more difficult for us to change as well.
Oh,
Way more difficult. So sometimes you might have to bust out of whatever circle is believing that about you, and bust into a new one, and it's easier said than done. It starts from like just looking at yourself and saying, I want to learn how to love myself. I want to learn how to support myself. And I want to learn how to find that support and love
and,
around.
and to start from nothing is scary, because I was in that position to where like everyone thought that I was not worth anything, like I wasn't gonna go anywhere. So it's just that in itself, like that in itself made it difficult to be able to live and be around them and be who I really was, because they all had this perception and idea of who I was. So trying to be out of that box, trying to say something different, act differently, it was like you're a Martian to them. That's not you. You're this.
So
And
super uphill battle.
yeah, so no matter what you say or do, this is who you are. And the more you fight it, the more angry you get, the more you want to say fuck you or whatever. It turns them against you. It makes them feel right for how they treat you.
Yeah, well, look, he's acting out. So
Exactly.
we were right about this person.
Exactly.
Right? He or she is acting out. Um, yeah, so it can be very tough. It can seem almost impossible, you know.
Yeah.
And you found some good support
Yeah. It was.
in LoveCry,
It was love cry.
Angel Femia, who showed you that kind of acceptance, and that acceptance. It's this paradox where when you accept yourself and accept your bad, accept your good,
Mm-hmm.
that it makes it easier to change. So when you're like, I don't want to accept myself because I don't want to be like that,
Yeah.
then that makes you more stuck. But when you accept it, then it's easier to actually take a step out of
Because now people have convinced you to hate yourself. This is part of you. This is who you are. And now they're all saying you're bad, you're no good, you're this, and it's like, can you calm down? Like, I'm not hurting society by being myself after being abused. Like, you have to. There needs to be more understanding for people. Like, how do we expect things to change, to move forward, if we just hate people for the actions that we so-called deem bad? But then what's going on inside our own head? How are you thinking about these people? How do you think about your family, your neighbor? Like, if you judge them and put them down, like, how are you any better than the guy doing drugs in the street? It's it's just pain.
like that labeling of that person on the street doing drugs, that labeling, that psychic uh, energy that we're going to put on them is not going to help them get better.
Like, yeah,
So we're
exactly.
contributing to their problem by like, oh, that's just a druggie, that's just an alcoholic, that's just a
Yeah.
whatever, right? So we all need some kind of grace, and the way that I define grace is like you get something good that you didn't even deserve, but it's like a life preserver gets thrown to you in the ocean, So we can all benefit from some kind of grace, and that's also a code word for love. You give somebody that loving and caring, and you mentioned earlier, you made a great point that it's very difficult to find love in our society. And someone's like, no, no, I love my girlfriend. My girlfriend loves me. So, and I mean, there is love there, but there's other things there, like you're stroking my ego, I'm stroking your ego, or you're helping my denials, and I won't call you on your denials, and you don't call me on my denials. So, there's all kinds of like, this person looks good on my arm, and I look good on their arm. So, I'm a status symbol for them, or they're a status symbol for me. So, like, there's all kinds of things mixed in, but that pure love where you just want the best for someone. If someone breaks up with you and you still want good for them, like that's love.
Yeah.
When they're just giving you what you want and you want good for them, like that's pretty easy, right? So it goes back to this point that I made in another clip about loving your enemy, or it's just that unconditional that's so healing, and that's part of what
Because if you
brought me
can't, yeah,
around.
if you can't love your enemy, then you can't love yourself. What you hate in others, you hate in here. It's inevitable, Like, you could try to prove it wrong, you could try to fight against it, but it's a karmic law. There's nothing you could do.
And I'm like Mr. Pure, like I eat organic, I go to the gym, I drink spring water, blah blah blah. So it would be easy for somebody like me to look at someone who's addicted to a substance, whether it's alcohol or a drug or a prescription drug, and say, well, I'm way better than that. It's like we all have addictions. We all have things that we do compulsively that we're using in a negative sense to like throw more carpets onto the dirt that we swept under the carpet. So we all of us are doing something addictive.
Every one of us. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about that self awareness, that self acceptance, which will bring out the self awareness. Because if you're trying to hate, if you hate part of yourself, then that part of yourself is not going to say, "Hey, here I am, come and heal
Yeah,
me."
exactly.
So it's just going to go further down under the carpet, and then we're going to walk around wounded and more like, and I forget who used the word hungry ghost, but like something inside us which is a hungry ghost, and it's looking for, the next level of that video game or the next substance or the next girlfriend or the next boyfriend or the next whatever, and to distract us. So that hungry ghost, we need to heal that, accept it, and then we won't be so hungry because we're more whole. We're more like standing on our own, and we can love more unconditionally because we have that for ourselves.
And it's kind of like workout. Everyone starts from where they're at in their own place, and because of judgment, now no one can be who they are. They all have to be this person that looks good to this person, to society, but yet inside they're dying. Like they're dying. Their heart, and then it gets closed and closed and closed, and then depression, and then obviously addictions and things like that. But when your heart closes down, that's
That's
probably,
the beginning of the end, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all depression leads, I believe, to there.
I have a book about the heart, and it says like ask anyone, point to something, now point to yourself, and no one's like, here I am. No, people do like, here I am. I'm here. Like so, that's our center, and that's our love center, and love is really what drives us. And you said about looking good, so people are like, I'm gonna buy that house, I'm gonna buy that fancy car, and then I'm gonna be accepted. I'm gonna like we're looking for acceptance, which is part of
Yeah,
love.
I put my kids in this program. I did this for my kids. We read books all the time on these things, but emotionally, I'm not there for them. It's, do you know what I mean? Like these things, like it's so like these things are okay, but to use them to be like this is what makes me good or make me better, then you're not even being yourself, because if it's because of a reason to make you look better or make this person look better to be better here, then it's not for you. You're doing it for others. So then that also is taken away from yourself, which creates self hatred.
Or maybe even to convince yourself what a good parent I am, what a good boyfriend I am, what a good whatever I am, because I gave these things, right?
Exactly.
But did I give of myself? Did I give my unconditional acceptance and love to whatever degree we're
Yeah,
able to
exactly.
do it? But yeah, there was a comedy with I think Richard Pryor, and this rich dad hired him to help him with his son. He's like, you just need to hold your son and tell him you love him. You don't need to buy him another fancy car, or toy, or whatever gadget. And it was such a powerful message that in that movie for me anyway.
Yeah, it's harder said than done, because love is a practice. Like love is something you need to work on. It's not something we just born doing because you're a human. Like you're born maybe doing it as a baby, but as you get raised in society and advertisements and the conditions from your own parents and like the people around you, you lose yourself. You lose that part, and you need to find that again. Kind of lost what I was talking
Well, that's
about.
the
Sorry.
to me a big part of the cure for addictions. Is that we fill this void. We satisfy that hungry ghost, so we're not looking for this external stuff, whether it's the next model of car or the next bigger house or the next drug or the next buzz from alcohol, like whatever the next.
Because I was even stuck in it with children's aid, trying to like show that I'm a good dad, a good father, so like you're just constantly trying to do this good, this good, this good, and you can't do anything bad. You're not allowed to do anything bad. You're not allowed to be human. You're not allowed, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it drove me mental. Like it made me so anxious and so upset and so hurt. And that's what they, so I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but that's what they wanted to control you, because now I'm emotionally unstable. Um,
And that would have made you more susceptible to some kind of addiction.
yes, exactly. They end up on
that
drugs,
that
addiction.
alienation, like this is what I'm supposed to do to be a good dad rather than what I feel to do as a father. So I think this is I mean there are let me just throw in a couple of nutritional things. There was a lady who was giving people about three nutrients that she found quite helpful for at least alcoholism. So one was B complex, one was glutamine. So I take glutamine because it's great for recovering your muscles, but it's also got good mental effects too. B complex I take for energy and for mood and ambition. We talked about that in the mood video. And then the other thing she found very helpful. So three things. So we have what I say: B complex, glutamine. Then the other one is evening primrose oil, which has GLA, gamma linolenic acid, which is a very specific fat. When you drink alcohol, your brain makes more GLA. So it's part of what alcohol does to make you feel better. Alcohol does several things to make you feel better. But then, as we said, then it knocks you out and you're worse off. But anyway, you can get GLA from evening primrose oil. Breast milk has GLA. In terms of foods that contain GLA, there's very few. There's evening primrose seeds. Hemp seeds have a little bit, and borage seed oil, which is not something you're going to find in the grocery store, but you can get evening primrose oil in health stores, and it's good for epilepsy, it's good for sleep, it's good for hormone balance. But what Larson, I think was her last name, she had very good effects with alcohol with those three things. So I just wanted to throw in a little bit of nutrition and alcohol. Whether it helps with other substances, I'm not sure. Those things are certainly not going to hurt you, so you can try them because they're very good nervous system support.
And it's also a lot of work, especially when you're trying to find that care and love for yourself. That because like for me, it was like forgiveness, unconditional love. These teachings that I learned that would also help me process my emotions. So there's things that we can do to deal with those negative feelings that are overwhelmingly impacting us, that will relieve us of that pain, or at least bring us to that pain so that we could heal it.
So not running from it,
Yeah.
and looking for ways to run.
Yeah, in a way that's like safe, in a way that's healing, a way that makes you feel like accepted, like for your choices, for who you are, for what's happened. Like you have to take your whole history into play to why you are the way you are. And then you could work from there, and then you could grow and change these things. Don't ever think that this is what you have to be. It may be what you want to be in the moment, but that I would challenge, because I think that is just a way to cope, as a way to deal with the pain instead of face it, because it hurts a lot more when you're in people's faces and they're telling you how they feel and they're saying these things right to you. It's crushing, but it's also empowering in a sense. It makes you stronger, but it's a process.
And it takes courage.
Yeah.
It takes courage, and it takes that ambition, and like you said, it's like an exercise. Like, you're not going to start at 1,000 pounds. You start at 5 pounds and work your way up. And so these practices are things that we need to practice and keep practicing for as long as we live. And the payoff is that we're more whole, and we're more at a higher vibration, and we're less susceptible to spinning our wheels with any kind of addiction.
And then one resource for it would be the Spirit Rock Meditation Center, Jack Cornfield. If you go on there, they have a lot of listings of his meditations that are just there for free that you can listen to. They are hard, I guess, in a sense, to do on your own. You have to be really honest. You have to be really honest with yourself to see and keep practicing, because the first time I did like a thing on forgiveness, it didn't really help. It didn't really do anything. You just kind of like, whatever, I'm talking to myself, but as you keep practicing and working it, you start to hear different things. You're like, oh, I never thought of that.
So you're listening to the same thing, but the more you listen to it, the more it hit you in a different way. So I think that's a wonderful share, that you tried this very useful thing that you love, like the Spirit Rock things that Jack Cornfield has put
they
together.
offer all sorts of teachings.
So
and talks.
you think so highly of them, but the first time you listen to it, you're like, this isn't helping me. But you had this faith to, like, okay, I'm going to try listening again.
I wanted to get better. Yeah, the ego is your worst enemy. Anything you don't like, it's going to tell you,
just have another drink.
Hey,
and don't worry about
yeah, exactly. It's going to be like, hey, buddy, let go with them. Don't worry about that guy. So beware of that.
All right, Jesse. I think that was awesome, and I think this is very. I'm hoping that this is going to inspire people to know, as you're saying, don't accept that you have to be the way you are. And it's this paradigm, or the paradox, pardon me, of like learning to accept and embrace all of aspects of yourself that brings you to a healing place where we don't have to run from ourselves with help from addictions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.